Hello and welcome to Virtu Design Institute Visual Communication Skills. My name is Rachel and today I'm going to be presenting a short tutorial on how to deep etch and retouch a photo in Photoshop. This is a really important skill for graphic designers in an industry job to have, as they'll be doing these sorts of tasks frequently. So we can see we've got a generic photo here with a model in it, and we're going to be looking at the colour and different aspects of the photo that can be improved to make it a more appealing image. This is our finished product and what it might look like. You can see it's on a white background or a transparent background so that it can be used with any picture behind it in a graphic design application. So back to our original, if we flick between the two, you can see that there's quite a few little differences in the appearance that we've changed, and we're going to start by doing those, and I'll show you step by step. The first thing we're going to do is get rid of a little bit of the yellowness in her skin tone, and we do this by applying a photo filter. So if we just go down here, you can see a whole bunch of different effects and things that we can do down here. Filters, and we choose photo filter. There are warming and cooling filters, and if you have a play through these, you'll choose which is appropriate for your photo. We're going to use the cooling filter 82, and then you can adjust how strong the filter is. You don't want it to be so strong that you can then see blue in the whites of her eyes and in the lighter areas. You just want to choose something that makes it look neutral, and you can click it on and off to see how strong it is. And I think that that's about right, or maybe even a little bit less. You just play with it until it looks right to make it a nice colouring. Now I look at the whites of her eyes to check that that looks like a pure white, and then I feel comfortable with it, and I can just minimise that there. The next thing I'm going to do is click back onto the image itself, and I'm going to use a liquefying filter to change the shape of parts of her face and her shoulders to smooth them. And I just choose Liquify in here. Now the first area I want to concentrate on is down here, and you can see that in the appearance of her shoulder the strap's a bit tight and it's making her look a lot bigger than what she is. So what we can do is adjust our brush size up here. That one's a little bit small there. That one's a little bit big. So you just sort of play with that and adjust, and then you place it and click and start moving parts of the image around. And you're just doing little movements to make some adjustments. Now I'm going to use a bigger brush size to move a bigger area. And I'm just going to slowly shimmy down her shoulder there and smooth it out. I'm going to adjust the little area with her hair. Just in here, making it nice and smooth. There we go. The next thing I'm going to look at is her chin in here. Her smile isn't really as perky and happy as it could be, so I can just, with a slightly smaller brush, go in and push up the tip of her smile. And this will just make her face slightly happier, slightly warmer. And they're just small changes that you're looking at. It's the subtleties of the face that communicate. So there we go, slightly happier. I also want to look at this region in here and just make her jaw a tiny bit more defined. Now you can see I'm using just this simple tool here, and all I'm going to do is push in her cheeks to smooth them out. I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm pushing up and in. Now because of the hair that's framing her face, you've got quite a bit of flexibility with the sorts of movements you want to do in here. Now what I might just mention at this stage is it's really important not to retouch to the point of losing the integrity of the photo and the integrity of the original image. You don't want to for ethical reasons, change the image too far from the original, so it doesn't even look like the person anymore. Now I think that's enough liquifying, so we just press OK, and it takes a little while to process, and there we go. Now if I go up to my little history panel here, you can either bring it up from going to Window and to History. I've got it open here. If I click on the original, I can flick through the tasks that I've now done to see my changes. And I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just going to save what we've done. And I'm saving it as a Photoshop file, so I save my layers. Right, so it's looking a little bit nicer now. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just lighten the image a little bit. Now there's different ways you can do this. You can go into levels, you can go into curves, you can go into hue and saturation, brightness and contrast, and they all do slightly different things to the colouring and the brightness of the photo. I'm going to go with a more holistic approach and go with curves. Now I can just grab it at any point along that line and start moving it around, and you'll see how it changes the images. Again, we're just going for a subtlety of change here, so I'm just going to move it to about there, and you can see here the change that makes. Just brightens it a little bit, and I'm quite happy with that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the clone tool. So this is the clone tool over here. You just press on that one there, and we're going to use that to remove some of the blemishes. I'm going to quickly just zoom into a few of these blemishes here so we can really concentrate on them. So with our clone tool again, we are going to adjust the brush size. We're also going to adjust the opacity. You don't want to be at 100% for this task. Normally around 20 to 30% I find is satisfactory in just doing subtle changes. So what we do is we hit the Alt key. You can see how it changes the little symbol there, Alt or Option. And what we do is that takes a little screenshot of what's happening at that particular space. And then if you click on the blemish, whoops, we've got to be on the right layer there, let's try that again. You can then go over the blemish and slowly make it disappear by putting a similar texture over the top of it with a transparency. So this is quite slow, and what you do is you slowly go around the image, just covering up and getting rid of those little blemishes to smooth out the entire image. Now you can spend hours doing this, so it's really up to you how much detail you're going to go into. You might decide just to get rid of the main blemishes or all the little pimples, or you might go in and get rid of all like the little red bits and you know, hairs that are out of place and that sort of thing. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm just doing a few little ones as an example to you. Up here there's a couple of little pimples that we can get rid of, nice and easy. Again, I'm not into changing the image so much to get rid of her age lines or anything like that. We're just trying to improve the appearance of the image so it's more appealing to look at. Alright, I'm just going to zoom out of our image here, get a few little ones up here before we move on. Now with skin tones, because it's made up of pixels and we want to have a smoothness to it, we can use the blur tool a little bit. Again, we don't want to blur too much, so we're going to take that strength all the way down. I'm going to take our brush size up so that we can do it a little bit quicker. We're just going to blur over, and what that does is joins the pixels to smooth them off and to smooth the appearance of the skin tone. We don't want to get the eyes or the hair or things that have a lot of detail in them. We're really just smoothing the overall gradient in the skin. And that again will just make it look that little bit smoother and more appealing. So we can go to our history panel and we can have a look by clicking on and off what effect what we've just done has made. And as you can see, it's very subtle And that's what we want. We just want subtleties when we're dealing with photos and skin tones. Right, so we can save there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to deep etch the image. There are many ways of deep etching images, but what most people will tell you is the hardest thing to deep etch is hair. So Photoshop developed this great refine edges tool, which is perfect for deep etching hair. But before we go there, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can deep etch. There's the quick and simple ways. So there you have your magic wand, you literally select it and click. Using the shift key, you can add to your area of selection. And once you're happy with that, in this case we're going to select inverse, so we select our girl because we've clicked on the background. And you're going to go edit copy, edit paste. And what it will do is paste it on a new layer. Now you can see, because of the type of image and the type of background in this instance, it's actually done a fairly good copy. There are, however, raggedy edges that are not that appealing and that you really wouldn't use in the industry. It's not up to scratch. So that's the magic wand tool. Let's just delete that. Another way of selecting your area is the lasso tool. So we can choose our lasso. Now, with the lasso tool, you're clicking and lifting and then clicking again to create your area of selection. So you could go along the edge, but again, it's not that smooth. And when you're dealing with people and skin and hair and clothing, you have some jagged lines and structured lines and some curved lines. So you can see as well, this is going to leave quite a jagged edge. So let's escape from that. There's also the magnetic lasso tool. Now this is an automated tool which you just click once and then start dragging along the edge, and Photoshop is intuitive enough to start putting its own anchor points in and trace the object almost to make the selected area. Now the problem with this as well is it's not that accurate and it's not as smooth as we would like it to be. So we escape out of there. Lastly, we have the pen tool. This one, you can click and drag the edges and start mapping out the curves to deep etch from. Now with this you would use a masking tool, which I won't show you today, but if you need to know it, you can always email me or I can upload it at a later stage. Right, so that's how you mask out using the pen tool. So now that we've looked at those different options for deep etching, I'm going to show you the Refine Edge tool because again, it is the best for smoothly cutting out hair. So what we do, because it's going to smooth it for us, we can use our magic wand tool. So we're just going to use the shift key, pressing down and clicking to add to our selected area. Simple enough, that's all we do. And what we're going to need to do is select the inverse. We've selected the background, we need to swap that around so we've selected our model. Next we go select Refine Edge. And as you can see, it cuts her out for us. But we want it to be a little bit smoother. So what we're going to do is just play with these settings on the side here. We're going to feather probably around 2 pixels, smoothing probably around 5, contrast, shift edge. You can just play with these and see how you go. And you drag that over the edge of her hair. What it does is it starts smoothing out and separating the fine little bits of hair from the background. And you're just really just drawing over the edge of it. It adds a transparency to it, which is then, perfect for putting any sort of background behind it. And it really is important to have a beautifully feathered edge for hair. You don't want it to look like a Lego person with a very harshly cut bob. And you can just draw really, really loosely over the top of these edges and then go back and refine it like I just did on that bit. Now, when I go to output, I want it to be, I want it to create our model on a new layer, and I press OK. And you can see a new layer just popped up, and there's our girl. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go back down to our new fill or adjustment layers, and I'm going to select a solid color, and I'm just going to have white behind her there. And that's it. That's our retouched girl.